glad I hit the go live button after you did the do it phrase. But welcome in to the show. This is Bears Over Beers. I'm Jeff Berckes, a writer for Windy City Gridiron. On the other side of the screen over there, that's EJ Snyder, draft expert extraordinaire and bootleg co-host. We're going to talk about the Chicago Bears. We're going to talk about some other stuff though too, because we got some good questions from people on Twitter. If you ever have any questions, hit us up on Twitter. That's what we're doing with this show this year. Although we only got one show left, so if you've been saving it all year, now's the time to roll that out. Let us know what's up. And we do this on Wednesday nights, 8:00, and we always start with a drink. So EJ, how you doing, and what'd you bring to drink?
I'm well. I had a good holiday. Things were generally pretty smooth. The weather was not terrible, as I know it was for lots of folks in the middle of the country. I know some folks in Nebraska have been going through it with weather. But I got out to a little grocery store that's like a mile and a half from my house, and I've driven by it a million times, and I'm always like, I'm going to stop in there. I'm going to stop in there. Turns out it's a Ukrainian market, which is awesome because they have like 15 Ukrainian beers that I have not seen anywhere else. And they also have a very nice selection of German beers. So this is Berliner Bock, brewed in Germany since 1516.
It's a long time.
Yeah, it is. Anyways, 16-ounce can, as it is German beer, they do not spare the horses, 6.7 by volume. We're going to have a good time. So nice. I love Bock as a style. And we're going to have a pint worthy of the holidays. Let's put it that way. What'd you bring on?
So I don't know if everybody had been following my bourbon bet or whiskey bet, as it were, with our friend Brendan Shagrew. We bet on a over-under for DJ Moore that came out pre-season on touchdowns. And he said under on touchdowns for DJ Moore. And I said, you're insane. He's going to clear that without any issue. And before you knew it, I was in a bourbon bet. And then before Brendan knew it, he lost that bourbon bet real quick because DJ Moore
is DJ Moore.
Came screaming out with some touchdowns. Yeah. He slowed down a little bit, but he cleared that mark pretty early. So I won. I think that I won this bet in like September or October.
You had the division sewed up mid-year.
Yeah, it was early. Right. And so I did some traveling in October and I said, hey, take your time. Don't worry about it. And he ended up getting this sent out. Just got this in the mail today. Not in the mail. That's not a thing that happens. This was delivered to me by reindeer and all that. Yeah. So sorry about that. That didn't happen. Not mail. But he, being an Irish guy, sent me an Irish whiskey. So I'm going to be trying this out.
Have you not had Teeling?
No, I have not. Spirit of Dublin, single grain, and aged in Cabernet Sauvignon. How do you say that? Sauvignon. I don't drink wine.
Sauvignon.
Cab barrel wine
barrel.
cask.
Sure.
And so no, I have not had this. But he sent it with a very nice note as well. And we like Brendan, good guy. Yeah. Very happy. We've had him on our show with my show with Lester, and so friend of the channel, and so he sent me this very nice bottle of Irish whiskey, so I'm going to crack that tonight.
Yeah, and that's the one aged in, like you said, wine barrels, so it's going to have a different color and hue and bite than straight, we'll call it straight, regularly aged Teeling. But Teeling is an Irish classic. Teeling is one of the big, I would say 3 or 4. Obviously Jameson, Bushmills, Teeling's right up there. Cavan, there's a couple others, but Teeling.
Redbreast.
More here than there, strangely. I mean, it's
popular here,
but it's not the same thing. And there are many whiskeys like that, both in America and abroad. When you go somewhere and they're like, oh, we have American. And you're like, oh, yeah, we don't really drink that. But okay, cool. Yeah, it did indeed originate in the United States.
Well, I thought you'd appreciate it, particularly since you're
absolutely
a big Irish whiskey guy. So
100%.
Thank you to Brendan. Good first sip. Very nice and enjoyable. So I'm sure that I'm going to enjoy this tonight and further on. I want to start off with a comment that we got from our Twitter friend Graham. He's at Yardbox77G. Says, thanks for another entertaining season, guys. Have a good. How do you say it? Hogmanay? Hogmanay?
Hogmanay, I think. Yeah.
Hogmanay?
I
When
don't
it
know.
comes, which means New Year's for Scottish New Year's, which
Yeah.
I only remember that because I think he wished us this last year. And so
You have better memory
because I
than
was like,
me.
oh, that's New Year's, right? Like, confirmed that that's what that was. And I said, hey, I think I'm going to open up a nice bottle of bourbon for this.
Yeah.
And he said the tradition is to finish off an old bottle and
Yeah.
open up a new bottle.
Correct. It's
And I
a
thought,
yeah.
there's an idea.
Yeah.
So here's the problem, EJ. I don't have a bottle that's
You
that close to being finished.
I
So I got
saw
some
that.
work to do this week.
Yeah, you gotta catch up. I think I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum. I have like 5 bottles upstairs that have like this much in them. I do not have like a new bottle
You
or
don't
a
have a
full
new
bottle.
bottle.
I did not. I haven't picked one up lately. The most recent one I got was the Miami Green, which is excellent, by the way. I'll definitely get another one of those. But it's like a third full, and then I have quite a few that are literally a drink, a shot away from being finished. So I can abide by that tradition pretty easily this year, and go get a fresh one. That would be good.
I got some work to do, guys.
Yeah,
So
you
the
got
rest
some
of this
heavy
week,
lifting.
I'll pick a bottle out tonight that I can drink down. There's a couple candidates. I'll drink that down. I'll
There's a
finish it
couple
on New Year's.
candidates.
I've got plenty of unopened bottles. There's no shortage of
Yeah,
unopened bourbon
I'm the
bottles.
other way around. I gotta go get something nice, but I'm due. I need to. Well, that's not true. A friend of ours found something and is also sending it to me via Pony Express. So depending on when that gets here, I mean,
Yes.
can't count on the ponies over the passes this time of year, but
Right.
whenever
Weather is tough. Right.
the sweaty horse arrives, I may have a very worthy new bottle to start the new year off with.
Perfect. Hopefully we'll get to share that next week. Okay.
Yes.
I want to start off with a question from Blog Work Orange, which kind of love that name. It
Yeah.
had his own little logo too. Pretty
Mm-hmm.
great. At Modo S tweet on the Twitter machine. I shortened this down. It was a lot going on in this question, and I just kind of wanted to focus in on one part of the question that I thought was pretty interesting. And part of the question was, how would the Bears' head coaching job, rank if it came open? I really like this question. Now,
Yeah.
again, we don't know anything. We don't know if Ryan Poles is going to be making the decision. We don't know if Ryan Poles is going to keep Matt Eberflus into 2024 or if he would prefer to switch out. We don't know these answers to these questions, but let's just say that I get my wish and the Bears do go back into the pool from the perspective of the other potential open jobs and the jobs that we know will be open, like the Chargers job. Where do you think the Bears job would rank?
I like the Bears job more than a lot of people who are talking about the Bears job do right now. And that has a lot to do with how the Bears have done for a very long time. And that is carrying some momentum. You can talk about momentum not being real in sports. In this particular case, it is. It is a big job. Chicago has not won consistently in a long time. And you are not stepping into what I would call an easy situation. Now, coaches are a different breed by nature. They can fix it. That's why they're coaches. They see a player that maybe hasn't worked out, I can fix him. They see an offense that isn't quite clicking. Hey, I could tune that up. I can make it run. So coaches, I think, are going to be very interested because money is being spent. That for a long time was a sort of, I'm not going to call it a faux knock against the Bears, but that was just one of the things people believed about the Bears. They won't spend money. They're clearly spending money. They have some good young players and they have some cornerstone pieces in that sort of middle range of, I would say, NFL prime age. The DJ Moores and the Montez Sweats of the world, Jalen Johnson's entering that range. Like, there's a lot of assets here. And if you have a general manager who is going to see eye to eye with you and they're going to have to agree with Ryan Poles, that's going to be the deal. It's a very attractive job. It's the third largest market in the country. If you become a winner in Chicago, you are a god. I believe the sort of crux of it is quarterback, right? If you look at, you said compare it to the other jobs. If you're looking at the Chargers job, you already have Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert's a great quarterback. You can build around him. He is young. He's already signed. You know he's going to be there. That's the difference. If you don't feel like you are a, let's say, quarterback developer, if you don't feel like you want to go through the growing pains of the first year or two with a young quarterback, if that's not your gig, the Bears job will be a little bit less attractive. For any other reason, the Bears job is looking pretty solid. You've got some young pieces on the offensive line. You've got some great running backs. You're going to need to add wide receiver, but it's a great year to do that in the draft. You've got some good pieces on defense that you can build around. You've got a great market that's largely untapped and an ownership group that's willing to spend money. So I think it's a better job than a lot of people think it is. A lot of people are talking about it like it's the fourth or fifth job available. And I just don't believe that. It's, if not the top job, if you feel you're good and want the chance with a young quarterback, it's probably the top job. If you don't want that, it's maybe the second job after the Chargers job. But the Chargers roster is, you're going to need to do more work with the Chargers roster, put it that way.
Chargers roster is getting old. They're they're not.
The cap
exactly
space is terrible. They're, I think,
40,
43 over projected right now. So,
right, so you're gonna have to move some guys,
yeah,
one way or the other.
You're gonna have to make some tough decisions as soon as you get in the door. So, in terms of roster, not as good as the Bears in terms of cap space, young players, whatever else. In terms of quarterback, yeah, better, but that's a tough thing to step into as well as a new coach and say, hey, I'm going to take this really popular guy and trade him or get him gone. Ryan Poles had to do a bunch of that when he stepped into the job. So it's really sort of pick your flavor, but I think it's a very attractive job because there are a lot of things lining up. You still got money. You got draft picks. Yes, you need to nail the quarterback pick. That's true. And we all know those are dark waters, but around that, great city, great football culture. Again, if you turn Chicago around, turn them into a winner, you're never buying another meal in that town ever.
Yeah, I have a hard time thinking it's not the top job. And again, you get to go coach Justin Herbert. I think that's an incredible opportunity, but everything else around the Chargers right now just doesn't feel very good. You know, and I'm not necessarily someone who buys into the idea that a coach would care about some of these things, but you're the second team in that, you know, you're renting a stadium, right? You're the second team in a city that largely doesn't really care about their teams, right? And so you left San Diego, you're in LA, you're kind of a visitor. Teams that travel well, which a lot of NFL teams do, their fan bases do, you end up playing 15 away games. Like, you know,
a lot of road games.
You never really have a stadium that's full of that powder blue, right? As much as I think the Chargers are like a football analyst's favorite team, right? Because they look good on paper. They're fun. They're fun jerseys. Like there's a lot of fun stuff that goes with the Chargers, right? They really do get projected to win a lot more than they actually do. It has happened many times since I've been watching football. Like people are like, I really like the Chargers. They look really good, and then fall short of expectations. You know, it's like your favorite football analyst's favorite team kind of thing, right? And so I just don't know that job is actually all that attractive outside of Herbert because of everything else around it. And I'm not sure you really want to go in and just be second team. Whereas again, you could go in and you could own a city that is football first when it's going right. Some of the other jobs, we're just talking about those two. You know, the Raiders, they might be locked into Pierce. So I don't know.
Should be.
Yeah.
He's done a lot with what he inherited. He's done a great job.
So I'm not sure that job's going to be open, right? That job might already be taken. You know, Washington's job's going to be open. I'm sure of it. You've got the Patriots job probably going to be open, but those teams are kind of messy right now. Those are kind of, I don't know what coach wants to be the one that replaces Bill Belichick. That somebody will, but that's an interesting proposition as well. Yeah. So a lot of those teams need quarterbacks, and the Bears are in the top catbird seat right now, given the draft position with the Panthers pick. So why wouldn't you want that if you're a coach? Like you have that, but the team that you'd be taking over isn't the reason why you have that pick, right? Yeah. It's not like the Bears are a 2-win football team. They've got some talent. They've won some games. They've underperformed their roster, but they've got some talent, right? So I think it's actually I think it's the job to take, which I also think is ammunition for you to want to go back out into the coaching pool, because
Sure.
if you're Ryan Poles, you have the most attractive landing spot. You should be able to attract whoever it is that you want. You should be the top destination. So that's what I think. I think it's the best job, and I don't think it's just because it's my favorite football team.
There's a lot of reasons that a coach would be attractive. They have a lot of flexibility. There is less flexibility in almost every other spot because, as you mentioned, some of those teams also need quarterbacks and their roster's worse and they have less cap flexibility. You start adding up those chips on the table and it's going to be harder to achieve the turnaround that you're expecting to make as a new head coach. I would say there are, more pieces of ammunition if you're the Bears coach to make that happen more quickly.
We got a super chat. Thank you very much to Butthead, and he. I think there's a lot of answers to this question, but he says, just for fun, what quarterbacks not named Mahomes would you do a 1-for-1 trade for with Fields? I mean, I would instantly do it for Justin Herbert. I would instantly do it for Joe Burrow. I think you'd have to do it for Lamar, as good as Lamar's looked as well.
Yep.
You might win his second MVP, which pretty much puts
Mhm.
him into the Hall of Fame. I mean, that's the level that a second MVP gets you. Those three off the top of my head. Obviously, Josh Allen.
I was going to say Josh for
would
sure.
be number
Has to be on
4.
that list.
That kind of rounds out my top 5 off the top of my head without thinking about it. There's probably a few more that are more established and aren't past like the aging curve that you worry.
Yeah. It's a weird question because it's really, I think there's a lot of teams out. I don't think there's a ton of teams out there that really are going to be compelled to give up a good quarterback for Justin Fields right now, who is a quarterback with a lot of potential, but does not have a ton of results and has showed flashes, but has not showed consistent quarterback play in the way that would, again, compel a team to be like, oh yeah, give me that guy. Like either they have a backup starting for them for whichever reason. They have a quarterback they thought was going to perform that didn't. So it would be sort of the bottom half of, teams would be like, ooh, the potential of Justin Fields is attractive. We want that because we think, again, we can fix him. We can make him better. We have a better landing spot. And that may be the case, but teams in the upper tier, the guys you're talking about, in terms of talent, like, sure, like you're going to give me one of the top 6 quarterbacks in the league for Justin Fields. Like, absolutely. He's not that. So that's one-sided and sure, take advantage of it. But for the teams that would be willing to do that with their starter, it would be the teams that are struggling right now and think that the potential of Justin Fields is an upgrade. So difficult question, but some of the fun ones would be like, it's sort of a litmus test for how you feel about young passers. CJ Stroud, I'd do it in a heartbeat. I think probably Anthony Richardson, I would do it in just what he showed inside of a month.
Let me reframe it.
Yeah.
Would you what quarterbacks? I think the ones we just listed, actually, you would do this for. But what would you trade 1-1 for? Pick 1-1 in the draft. So basically, Caleb Williams, the right to draft Caleb Williams for an established quarterback, right? So that's a more valuable.
It's probably the 4 or 5 that we need is Lamar.
The
Josh,
4 after he said
Justin,
not Mahomes.
Yeah, not Mahomes. So
right.
Yeah, Lamar, Josh
Lamar,
Allen,
Burrow, Allen,
Justin Herbert. Burrow. I know some people are going to feel iffy about Burrow's health status. Generally, I think his injuries have been more unlucky than systemic, but injuries are fluky. You can never tell. But from a sort of processing and talent wise, yeah, sure, he's absolutely on that list. But that's about it. Like after that, not a lot of sure things, and you get into age, contract balance, lots of other things.
Would you rather take the chance? Sorry, it's an interesting question to me. Stroud has shown you that he's going to be a dude. I mean, that looks like he's.
No, he is a dude, 100%.
Would you trade 1-1 for him, or would you want the right to take Caleb
No,
Williams
I
over
would trade
Caleb
1-1 for him. Absolutely. He's only been in year one
and
league,
he's always the
or
1 year.
only been in the league 1 year,
Mhm.
and he's already showed it. And there is no guarantee whatsoever that the quarterback pick 1-1 will succeed. Lots of first overall picks have bombed out of the league. Um, Again, with all eyes, all analysts, like there is no more sort of hot spotlight in the draft world than 1-1, right? That's the guy everybody talks about who's going to be the number 1 overall pick. Even with all that scrutiny, plenty of guys have been picking that spot and not done super well. So it's sort of bird in hand thing. You got a guy that's already performed really well and has shown, arm strength, which we knew he had, processing ability, smarts, great pocket movement, like obviously the ability to be coached because he's doing things in his first year that he wasn't doing in college, which has been a big revelation for a lot of us. Where like, oh, he's going to have to progress, and he progressed right away. Like credit Bobby Slowick with getting him up to speed immediately. I would take the quote unquote sure thing, the guy that's already doing it in the league. Game's not going to be too fast for him. You're going to hit the ground running with him. I would absolutely do that 100%.
I think that's where the list is. Maybe it starts to get a little gray after that, but
Yes.
I don't have another obvious answer. Someone said Dak. No, like Dak's a little beyond the curve for me in terms of the age. I don't, I'd rather take 1-1, take my chances with the rookie contract. And I like Dak. Dak's a good quarterback. I mean,
Yep.
but to me, he's
Very good
outside of
quarterback.
that group. You're down a tier for me. And again, someone can disagree. So, all right, let's get back into this. Oak Lightning at Oak Lightning 1 on Twitter. And again, I shortened this. There's a lot of very good multi-part questions that kind of kept going on. But this is a little bit of what we're talking about with Stroud. So I think this is a good way to pick this up. But he says, can Ryan Poles even pass up on someone like Caleb Williams after how Stroud has looked this year and the fact that he passed him up in last year's draft? Do you think that having 1-1 last year and trading down, which we loved, I mean, it made all the sense in the world, and we love the actual trade package and all the things that happened. And now you get this lottery ticket that came Powerball hit, man. Like, I mean, it's there. I mean, again, the Panthers have to lose this week for this to really solidify, but or one path for that to solidify.
Sure.
But if that happens, like, man, I mean, the lottery ticket has absolutely hit, Powerball hit, all those things. Do you think trading out of 1-1 last year has an impact on now coming back to 1-1 and be like, you can't really do that again? Like, you got to take the guy.
No, I don't. I'm sort of hardcore the other way as a draft analyst, and this gets it really deep into the weeds with draft stuff. We'll try and keep it skipping over the top of the waves here. What has happened in the past largely cannot affect the way you go forward, or you'll miss in the future.
Right.
If you say, I picked that guy from Ohio State and he didn't work out, so now I got to be leery of picking another guy from Ohio State. We're hearing that about Drake May this year, especially from Chicago fans. They're like,
Number
well,
10 from North Carolina?
yeah. They're like, well, the last guy, he was Trubisky and May, two different players. Yes, played at the same institution, but had very different careers. And so if you say, well, I can't pick another North Carolina quarterback because the last time I picked a North Carolina quarterback up high and he bombed out, you're going to miss in the future because of looking backwards. Each draft is its own snapshot of that place in time. And you talked about it last year. We loved it last year because we believed you need to give Fields a shot. And they did. They needed to give Fields a shot. They gave Fields another shot. Again, people do say very different things about that shot. He's progressing. He's great. You should keep him. He's shown us what he's shown us. That's not good enough. The lottery ticket is better. We don't need to come down on one side of that or the other right now, but people say both. So it looked good last year because it was last year. It was a snapshot. It was a place in time. They're not at that place anymore. So the variables have changed. So you can't look back and go, well, I didn't do it last year, so I have to do it this year. It doesn't work that way. It's kind of like, oh, well, I should save my picks for next year and pick the position. Well, players only come from a couple of places. They come from free agency, they come from the draft. And if you've got a hole or trade, but that's it. And if you don't have that guy, you can't just sit on your hands and say, well, I'll get a guard next year because the guard class is supposedly better next year. It doesn't work that way. You have the picks that year, you have those select group of players that year, and you have to make a mesh. and that's it. And then next year is next year. You'll have different picks and different players, but you can't go, oh, well, I can't pick a guard this year because it would have been better next. Like, it doesn't work that way. So there is a lot of pressure to get it right for multiple reasons. It's the top overall pick. Chicago has basically never had a quarterback in the modern era that has been the guy, the franchise leader, never had a 4,000-yard passer. There are plenty of reasons why there is a lot of pressure on Poles in this pick. I don't think any of them have to do with the fact that you didn't take quarterback last year. You weren't in a position to take quarterback last year. Like, you were in a draft position, but you weren't in an organizational position. You had a quarterback on the roster and you still wanted to see what he could do. You did that. You're in a different spot this year. Yes, you got another top pick, which is, as you said, lottery ticket hitting. Don't look backwards, look forward, make the best choice you can, and get on with it.
Yeah, 100% agree. I think we're on the same page on this one. I think last year it made all the sense in the world to do what they did. And I just want to mention this. We're in this age, and we've been in this age for a while, but we're in this age where it's hot takes everywhere, right?
Mhm.
And when Ryan Poles came out, made that decision, like, hey, we're going to trade this pick. Some of those hot take artists out there, you know who they are, the big
Mhm.
names, the guys that make millions and millions of dollars to shovel this crap at you guys, came out. This is a mistake. They're passing on Bryce Young. Bryce Young's going to be one of the biggest stars you've ever seen in your life, and this is a mistake. Chicago's going to regret this, right? And it got some news cycles, and everybody, oh man, Poles is making a mistake. He's passing up on this. Like, you got that. Whatever Ryan Poles does this year, you're going to hear the exact same thing.
Mhm.
Someone's going to come out and say that's a mistake. The Chicago Bears should have
For sure.
kept Justin Fields. The Chicago Bears should have drafted Caleb Williams. The Chicago Bears shouldn't draft Caleb Williams. They should draft Drake May. Drake May's the guy. Caleb Williams is going to be like, they're just going to be guys that are just going to take a position
Mhm.
because the oxygen's available, and people are gonna retweet it. They're gonna talk about it, and that's what it is. Don't worry about it. Like let's try not to feed into those things. It's gonna happen. Like,
Yeah.
whatever Ryan Poles
Um,
does, the opposite is going to be the opinion of a Skip Bayless or someone like that, right? Like, that's good. Like, I can guarantee you that that's going to happen. They're not going to agree with Ryan Poles. Doesn't matter what
Mhm.
he chooses. They're not going to agree with it because
Yep.
they're going to get the oxygen in the negative way. So don't worry about that stuff. Now that I say it, you're going to tag me in it when it happens. But don't worry about that stuff. Don't tag me in it. Don't worry about it. Like it.
I just love you telling draft fans not to worry about it. Like, that's all they're gonna do for the next 5 months. Like, sole occupation for the next 5 months is to worry about it.
Ain't that the
So, like,
truth?
have at it.
We'll get there. Once the Panthers picks confirmed, we'll see what the coaching decision is. We'll see where Poles is going to go in terms of whether or not he believes he's going to go into the rookie draft for a quarterback, whether or not he's going to trade out of that pick to try to acquire assets. But I wanted to get to this question before the break. And we don't have to spend a ton of time on it, but I think it's interesting. Opinion source from at Eric Bono. Eric's in the chat a lot on our live streams. He says, are there any potential player pick trade compensation packages that you prefer to drafting a quarterback at one? So I would assume in this scenario, you're saying we're going to build around Justin Fields again. We're going to keep going with Justin Fields. We're going to take that one pick and we're going to trade it to a quarterback needy team. We're going to take another package that's going to be bigger than the DJ Moore package last year because these quarterbacks have just a little bit higher premium to them. Potentially, I guess that's kind of the sense I get, is that you would potentially command more of a trade. And so you're starting to see a lot of these mock trade
Mhm.
simulators and some people putting together these potential packages, and the who says no, right?
Right.
The Raiders trade this number of picks and Max Crosby. Who says no? You're starting to see a lot of
Mhm.
those. Now, again, let's just say that management has come down and said, we're keeping Justin Fields. This is what we're doing. EJ, we want you to kind of guide us of where we're going to go in terms of trading out of this pick. Which organization should we be talking to try to grab one of those veterans that have a higher pick? Like, maybe guide us in that way. Is there any organization that makes sense in that way?
Yeah, I would try and get a repeat of what they tried to do last year and almost did until the Texans bolted. Like,
Double
they
down.
They had a great sort of cascading strategy, or Ryan Poles and his group, Ian Cunningham, had a great cascading strategy. They're going to trade from 1 to 2 and from 2 to 3. They were going to trade both times, rack up an immense number of picks. And that trade was on the table for a long time until Texans finally said, we're not sure. And Poles said, that's it. Carolina Panthers committed and said, no, forget it. We're just going to skip the Texans. We're going to 1. We're just going to get it outright. And that's when that trade, the trade that was consummated, occurred. If you can do that again, and I would say even regardless of whether or not you're going to stick with Fields. Now, that puts a lot more plates in the air. And at that point, I wouldn't go below 4. Pick number 4. Because we're going to assume that the first 2 picks are going to be Caleb and Drake. And we're going to assume that the third pick is going to be Marvin Harrison Jr. So if you have another quarterback you believe in, you can get them at 4. They're not going before 4. Right? Now you're going to take some slings and arrows, but if a team decides, hey, we're going to come up from 4, right? We're going to trade somebody, then we're going to trade again, or however that works. We're going to come up and we're going to give you slot 4, and we're going to give you a player, and we're going to give you a commensurate amount of picks to do that, which is going to be a lot. 1 to 4 is still a big trade in terms of draft points. So you're still going to get their first round pick this year, probably their first round pick next year, another very good pick this year, and maybe a player. Like that, if we're talking about picks and players mixed, which we're talking about many plates on sticks at this point.
Right.
But let's just say the Bears go, hey, we're not going to stick with Fields. We're going to go with insert quarterback you like here. I'll just say Jaden Daniels, because I know we have a question about him coming up later. I'll just throw him in the mix. The Bears say, we like Jaden Daniels. We're going to take him. We can get him at 4. We can trade from 1 to 4. We can get all these assets. We can get a player. And we can trade Justin for whatever pick he's going to bring, whether it's a 3rd or whatever else. We're going to get Jaden Daniels at 4. We're going to get all these extra picks from doing that, plus a veteran player, plus we're going to get the picks from Fields. We like that. We're safe with it. We're cool. We're going to let Williams and May and MHJ go. And we're going to pick our quarterback of the future at 4. And we're going to have a whole lot more ammunition to build around him, even in this draft. I'd be down with that. If they were committed to the quarterback, they would have to have just ice in their veins to do that, because
Brass ones.
they would get flamethrowered on draft night. Like they would just get torched. And look, you're just setting yourself up. If either Williams or May, and history says one of them will turn out to be very good, but really only one of them if you're looking at the averages. But one of them is going to turn out to be great, and you're going to have passed on them. And we know Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be great, short of catastrophic injury. So you're going to deal with that the whole time. So you better be 1,000% that your guy's going to work out, which you can never be in the draft. But if they have that sneaky feeling and want to grab all that extra stuff, I'd be cool with it. Other than that, make your life easy. Don't put 25 plates on sticks in the air. Just pick one of the 2 guys you like at the top.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the answer in the player, I don't think we have it a specific, trade package or anything in mind, but I really like what they did last year is that they focus on a guy that's early in his career. He's established and proven. So you're going to get like the prime of his career, and you've got the money. That's not a big deal, right? If you can take on a contract, like don't worry about that. And I would focus on a premium position, right? So the Bears definitely need another defensive end. So if that, where I'm going here, like if it's the Raiders on the line, if it doesn't include Max Crosby, you're hanging up. Like you have to have that be part of the situation, right? Part of the trade package.
And the great news about that is Poles. We already know Poles will do that. He was ready to hang up on Carolina coming up to 1, no matter what they were giving without DJ Moore. He was like, DJ Moore comes as part, or this is not happening. And they were like, what about? And he's like, don't start. It's him or it's done. So he's already held that line and got what he wanted. So we know he can do that if he's sure enough about another prospect. Bottom line is you have to come out with a quarterback, and I'm not talking about a retread quarterback. You've got to come out with a top flight quarterback, either in potential or proven. And there's no way around that at this point. That you're at that stage of team building. You have to have that in the building. And if you believe that's Justin, great, then commit and build around him, right? If you don't and you want to go potential, get the pick, get him in, get him developed, get a coach you believe who believes in whoever that pick is. Don't saddle one with the other.
Yep.
Or, trade for veteran, which is much less likely given
Much less likely.
all the things that come with that.
All right. Well, we're gonna take a quick break. Other side of this, we're gonna get one little draft question, and then we're gonna finish up with some TV talk. So stick with us. We'll be on the other side. All right, EJ. We got a question from Steve Jinx. He's at Steve Jinx1. What objective reason kept Jaden Daniels out of the conversation for number one overall throughout the college football season? So all the talk, it really did kind of go wire to wire, right? You had Caleb Williams kind of came in like he's consensus number one. People like really like this Drake May though, right? And it kind of came in like you've got Caleb number one, Drake May number two. There's some other guys that people like, JJ McCarthy, right? There, the other guys that people are talking about. And then for a while, it almost felt like Drake May was kind of like getting into the 1B, the 1A, 1B conversation.
Oh, he's won on a few.
And then
I won't say
one on some boards.
He is absolutely one on some boards. I will guarantee you that right now.
And then I feel like lately it's sort of come back. There's been a little bit more space where it feels like a 1-2 overall and not a 1A, 1B. So anyway, those two guys have sort of carried with each other wire to wire. And now you've got Jaden Daniels, Heisman winner, kind of coming up and getting more publicity, more press. So what about his college career has sort of emerged him late in this process?
Well, that's exactly what happened. And the reason that is the answer to this question. Throughout the college football season, the bottom line is he wasn't there when it started. So, when coming in, if you look at preseason, AP for college, it was Williams and May. They were already there. They were the presumptive number 1 and 2, and they both played really well. Now, Williams, you can talk about times he didn't play well. It's absolutely true. USC struggled. Drake May played, I would say well enough to keep his top status. And that's very well. Jaden Daniels did not have that year. It was his first year at LSU last year. He did not have the results. There were multiple reasons for that. He had a good year, but he did not in any way have an outstanding or great year. And he did not look like the quarterback that he did this year. He came into this year and early on, I watched games like, I think it was 3, 4, and 5 for LSU this year. I just happened to be in front of the TV on those Saturdays. And each week I was like, okay, something's changed. Like he's better. He's making a lot more throws he didn't make last year. He had the potential last year, but the potential and actually making were two different things. He added a real rushing threat. Again, you've seen that throughout his career in flashes, even when he was a freshman at Arizona State. You saw it. You were like, oh, he's mobile. But this year it all came together. And if you just look at his stats, I'm not a huge stat watcher, but look at his stats from last year, look at his stats from this year. It's not the same guy. So, but he was running to catch up to two guys that were, had a, 30-yard head start. So I think as we're getting to the end of the college football season, it's bowl season now, last games are being played. We're going to settle that down. We're going to get into the all-star season. People are really going to start diving into tape. And if they just look at this year for Jaden Daniels, they're going to go, they're going to ask this question. So why is he not being considered as one of the top 3? Why is he solidly 3? I think that train is going to gain more steam as people really get into the film, because his film this year is excellent. Like it's really good.
Awesome. I think it's interesting because, again, the whole year, we kind of figured the Panthers wouldn't be very good. I mean, the fact that they're a dumpster fire has been just a delight. I've just enjoyed myself so
for
much.
You.
Yeah, it's been great.
I go on Panthers radio with John Ellis probably every couple of months. John's been going through it along with Mike Kay and all the other Panthers beat writers. It's not been a fun season.
Certainly feel for those guys, of course, feel for the fan base. But, when your favorite team gets the number one pick of another team that's not doing well, you cheer against them. I made my myself clear at the beginning of the year what my priorities were. So this has been great. It's honestly been the most successful season I've ever had cheering for or against a team. I mean, if we're being completely honest, I've never seen
Yeah.
such success. Like
Right.
this has been fantastic. I've won
Yeah.
almost every single week. So this has been great. But it's just interesting to see the rise and fall of some of these quarterbacks, and there's a number of quarterbacks in this draft. And again, when you have even if the Bears didn't need a quarterback, and again,
Mhm.
wherever you're at on the Fields thing, like that's not what this is about. But
Yep.
if the Bears were in a situation where they had their guy, but they had this pick, it's excellent that there's quality quarterbacks available here, because teams are going to be willing to trade up, right? If you were in a draft a couple years ago where Kenny Pickett was the only first round quarterback and it was in the teens or whatever, wherever he went, like
Yeah.
that would be not a great draft to
No.
own. Not regardless of what the players at the top look like. That's not a great pick to own if you're looking to trade out, right?
Sure.
Because no one's going to trade up and spend that extra capital on a
Yeah.
non-quarterback, right? So even if you take a guy like Caleb Williams, who people love, or Drake May, whatever it is, or Jaden Daniels, whatever it is, or you're looking to trade down, this draft just has more value in it because of these quarterback prospects, which is fantastic. There may be a situation where the Bears are willing to trade out of their own pick and trade down to acquire capital, and there may be a quarterback that's still available because like a JJ McCarthy or someone like that who's available with the Bears' own selection. Then the Bears may be like, we're looking to acquire a little bit more capital. We want to trade out of this pick because it's a quarterback. You might get some people trading up. So it's nice to see more names and nice to see where they're going to stack here and where people go. This is where the excitement, I would assume, starts in the draft. It's not necessarily like I got my punters stacked, right? Like you start with the quarterbacks. What's this draft going to tell you? And that's how a lot of drafts are categorized, is by the quarterbacks and how many there were and how excited people were about them. Again, the one time I went to the Senior Bowl, it was the Kenny Pickett year, and I watched these guys. I'm like, none of these guys are very good. Like, you asked me because you weren't there at that one.
Yeah, no, I
remember
wasn't,
talking to you on
and
the phone that night. You go, "What do you think of the quarterback?"
what'd you see? Yeah.
I go, "Nothing, man."
No,
Like,
not
they're
not
not
good.
great.
And I was like, because the year we went, which was 2020, it was dichotomy year because it was Justin Herbert's year, but it was like Justin Herbert and Anthony Grayson.
Right.
And I swear to God, worst, miss, and it has nothing to do with an agent, but I joke about it all the time. I'm like, couldn't your agent have slipped somebody like $500 to say he throws like in front of Justin?
Right.
No, like literally in the throwing session, it was Justin Herbert and then Grayson threw right after him on a very cold, very windy day, tough conditions for quarterback, tough to grip the ball. It was a little bit of spittle. It wasn't really rain, but it was just so cold. It was really, if you haven't been to Alabama in the winter, I'm not kidding. It gets bitter cold. And here's Justin Herbert unleashing a cannon, cutting through the wind. Like everybody's like just checking the box. Like, yeah. Like we all knew he had a great arm. And here comes Grayson, who played at Wazoo and understands, inclement weather. And it was just the worst juxtaposition ever. It was like, oh, dude, could you have like taken a 15-minute break, like pulled your hammy or something and let a couple other guys throw and then come back? Would have been better for your draft stock, because that was just like, oh, okay, that guy, that's an NFL arm. That guy, that is not an NFL arm. And it was just so very clear. It just happens like that sometimes.
And again, not to rehash Senior Bowl of a couple years ago, but what's interesting was, none of those guys had a particularly great arm that were there, except for Willis, and it
Yeah.
was like, he's got an arm, but like the rest of it wasn't maybe all put together in a neat package at that point, but you don't have the NFL arm to compare to, so there wasn't this like clear, but it was
Oh
like,
yeah.
like nothing was impressive
For
right?
people that haven't been in that situation, there are certain things that occur, and it's not just with quarterbacks.
Right.
Like, yes, when a quarterback stands up and rips it, an NFL quarterback, like a top flight NFL quarterback, stands up and rips it, you go, ho, that doesn't look like anything I ever saw in high school or college, or like that's different. When an NFL punter steps up and hits the ball and you're turned around talking to somebody and you hear the
hear it.
sound behind you,
Hear it.
bang, and you're like, what the hell was it? Oh,
Right.
okay. That's a 5.3 second hang time, went 65 yards in the air. Like, that's a leg. Okay. When a wide receiver glides by you in warmups, not even in full pads, and he looks faster than anybody you've ever seen, and he's at like 60 or 70%, he's just really sort of warming up. He's just jogging through it, and you're like, it doesn't even look coverable. You're like, that's an NFL. It just looks different. Linebacker hits a guy pad to pad. You feel it in your chest on the sidelines. You feel that impact. Like, bam, and you're like, oh, okay. Yeah, I don't want to stand in front of that. That's NFL talent. Like, you can hear it, you can see it, you can feel it, and it looks different than the guys around them.
Yeah, same thing with camp, right? If you guys ever go to camp, you can kind of there's guys that are camp bodies, and there's guys that like this is. I've told this story before, but Lester and I walked in, and I go, "Who in the hell is number 90?" And it was Angelo Blackson. And he was just this vet, didn't know who he was, right? I honestly,
that guy's a house.
and I looked at him like, who is that guy? And he goes, Angelo Blackson. I go, he's gonna make the team. This is a guy. He's fine. He's gonna do okay. Like there's just things that just stick out, right? And it's fun. Yep. That's why those All-Star games are fun, because you get all those guys on the same field together, right? The stuff does have use. It's not perfect, right? You can still get fooled by all those things, but there is some very interesting, noticeable stuff. So, if you guys ever get a chance to do that, and you're a nerd and interested in that kind of stuff, totally take advantage of it. It's cool. All right, enough football stuff. We did so much non-football stuff last week. I almost had to apologize for that show. I was just so down on that third epic failure that I was like, I don't want to talk much about the game.
You know what we did? We just followed the Marshawn rule.
Yeah, I'm here.
Take care of your chickens, take care of your mentals. Like, yes, we just took care of our mentals. Like,
exactly.
That's it.
So we're flipping it. We did mostly football this episode. We got a couple TV questions. We did a lot of movie stuff last week.
That's true.
A couple TV questions that I thought were pretty fun. So this might be a little too specific for you, EJ. I don't know if you thought about this or prepped for this.
I saw it. These questions are always tough for me. You know that I want to be inclusive, and it's like when somebody goes, "Who's the greatest quarterback of all time?" You're like, "Oh God." So what's your favorite flavor of ice cream? What's your favorite movie? What's your favorite TV show? It's always difficult for me to do the sort of biggest blueberry questions. But I did see it, and I have a couple of answers, although they're, imperfect at best.
Hit me.
So favorite all-time TV episode, I would say it is within the series called The Unit, which was written by David Mamet and his wife. I'm a big David Mamet fan. And the first one, which is called First Responders, the very first episode ever, which I didn't actually watch in real time. I didn't pick up on The Unit until like maybe 3/4 of the first season was done. And I happened to walk by a TV and I was like, what is this? And then later on, I figured it out, picked up DVDs and, watched the whole series. And there are actually much better episodes of that show later on that are more complex and involving and gut-wrenching and all kinds of wonderful things that great TV can do to you. But the very first one sets a tone, and you'll pretty much know whether or not you're going to like the series off the first one. Now, it is not terribly polished. You can tell the cast was coming together in a lot of ways, as was the crew. A lot of first episodes are like that, but you will get it hits the notes that the rest of the series for 3.5 seasons, because they had a strike shortened season in 3, so they had 3.5 seasons. You'll get it. Like, if you don't like the first one, you're probably not going to like the rest of them. They just get better from there. They get more polished and more in depth, and you're definitely more connected to people. But like, the very first one hits all the notes. So I find myself going back and watching that. Even, it's got to be, I don't know what year The Unit came out. It's got to be almost 20 years ago. But like, I'll go back and watch that first episode now and again, because it's just, man, they hit several high notes throughout that, despite some of the struggles. So
love it. Okay, I got a list.
I'm sure you have a list and ranked. I bet you have percentages and a colored chart.
I at least have a list. Now, I don't know that I have them ranked, but because I struggled. with this?
It's an incredibly difficult question. Let's be fair. There's great episodes of comedies, dramas. Like
Yes,
it's
and so I tried to
very
do that.
difficult.
I
Yeah,
tried to
very.
pull from different. So anyway, this is from our friend Chad Vonk, who asked a good question last week, and he's bringing it again. So I've got some fun ones to go through. I think I have my answer, but I'm going to kind of run through my list. So,
Sure.
Sopranos, one of my favorite shows. Obviously a very obviously popular show. The Pine Barrens episode, which I think is great. If you guys know the Sopranos, Pine
Yep.
Barrens episode is fantastic, right?
Yep.
So that to me that was actually the first thing I thought of when he said, "What's your favorite TV episode?"
For
Oh,
sure.
man, Pine Barrens, love that episode, very fun. Breaking Bad, the season finale, I believe in season 4, which it's called Face Off, involves Gustavo Fring. Uh, I I don't want to say too much more because if you
Right.
haven't seen Breaking Bad, you should go watch it. But anyway, that's an incredible episode. That is a wonderful TV show. I mean, it's a brutal topic, and all those things. In terms of uh, drug trade and all that kind of stuff. But it's a wonderful show, amazing, incredibly well done, amazing arc and everything. It's probably my favorite episode from that show, just because it was such an interesting, ending to that season and character and all that kind of stuff. So I wanted to talk about that. I couldn't pick a Mad Men favorite episode because I had 3 written down. I'm like, I'm not going to do it. I love Mad Men. I love that advertising business side of things. I dabble in that a little bit, so that's fun. Game of Thrones.
I was gonna say I was waiting for the GOT. I was like, dude, if you go this whole list and you do not have a Game of Thrones, I'm gonna renounce my Bears Over Beers membership. I'm just wrong about you.
Battle of Blackwater. And so that's early. I believe that's season 2. And the reason why, one, it's just I find it. I find I've watched that episode so many times, and I find myself getting into it. And I think that they did a wonderful job with the sound. And I'm an auditory learner. I love podcasts, right? Like that's how I
Yep.
like to learn. And they did such a wonderful job with the sound. And for those of you that haven't watched the show or are trying to remember what I'm talking about, they start playing church bells, and all these bells are ringing as these ships are coming in to attack the city. So they're warning people, and this warning. So you hear all these church bells, and at one point, someone says, "Oh, they want to play music. Let's play music." And he says, "Drums," and then they start battling, pounding these battle drums, and so you hear these bells and these battle drums, and just the anticipation of what's about to happen. And that's a very clever episode. There's a lot of really interesting things, real good character development on a couple characters. Um, that's one of my favorite shows of all time, and I think that's my favorite episode. Okay, I got a couple more. Two, let's do 2 comedies. The Simpsons. Grew up on The Simpsons.
Oh, geez.
Monorail episode. It's written by Conan O'Brien. It really broke open The Simpsons. Like, once you learn about the monorail and what it did for the show, and then what Conan did for the show, like, I didn't know that at the time. It was just an incredible episode.
Just a good episode, yeah.
And then, of course, it's a parody of an old movie that's based in Iowa, right? It's The Music Man. So that's a lot of fun. There's a lot of layers in that, but that's a wonderful episode. The Office. I'm big into The Office. I watched, all of the seasons multiple times on those first few seasons. Hard to pick a favorite in that, but I think the prison Mike episode where Steve Carell gets offended that Pam says that work was worse than prison, so he pretends like he's like an ex-con and creates the craziest character called Prison Mike, and that thing makes me laugh all the time. I've probably watched that episode 20 times. Kind of a curveball. A David Chang show, Ugly Delicious.
Oh, I
It's
love
like
it.
right?
I love that show.
I have watched the barbecue episode
Yeah.
probably 6 or 7 times. I think it's a beautiful hour of television about food. I think it's the most well done food show that I've ever seen. I think all the episodes are worth watching, but I think the
Very
barbecue
much
episode
so.
honestly kind of makes me tear up when I watch it. There's
Yeah.
just a moment with a grill master in Texas, and I mean, there's just this. There's a real beauty to that episode, and I recommend it to everybody. Maybe it's still on Netflix, but I would absolutely recommend going and watching Ugly Delicious, and definitely watch the barbecue episode. The fried chicken episode is good too. Tacos episode is good. All the episodes are good, but the barbecue episode, one of my favorite hours of television. But my answer, Okay.
The
My
top
answer.
of the podium. I feel like we need a
The drum roll.
Yep.
Band of Brothers,
Oh yeah, 100%.
Bastogne.
Yeah.
That's my favorite episode of television. I think that's a wonderful series. All 10 episodes are obviously great. They're worth
Yeah.
watching. They're wonderful. But that show to me is really defined by the episode of Bastogne. So I did more research for this question, Chad, than I have on any Bears related question this year. So
I did not dig in that hard, but I do own Band of Brothers box set. I've watched it multiple times. It is incredibly gripping and I would say layered. I'll just call it entertainment. I don't even want to call it a TV show. I mean, movie, TV show seems like a weird designation
limited series, yeah, whatever
when
it
you're
is.
talking about something like Band of Brothers. It's such a fine line that you're like, what's the difference? Like if I combine 2 episodes of that, for length, you could call it a feature film in terms of every other piece. You talk about sound design and character development and, cinematography for sure. The way that show is shot there's so many images in that show that are just like, oh my God, that's gorgeous.
And then that episode particularly to me embodies all of those things, and the storytelling is wonderful. So all right, very fun question, Chad, really appreciate it. We'll close on this question, which is again TV related, but interesting challenge from Andrew Davis. Again, we spend way too much time on Twitter. It's part of the job, really.
Yes.
You have to promote your work, interact with
100%.
people. It's a really good way to interact with people. I try not to argue with people too much. That way lies madness. But there you do get into some really fun and interesting conversations, and you meet a lot of cool people. Let me just say that, like our Twitter network of people that follow the both of us and interact with us. Some of the best Bears fans out there, and fans from other teams. Right, we have fans from other teams that interact with us, and because they want to learn more about the Bears, and I find that to be pretty rewarding as well. But Andrew Davis, one of those guys on Twitter, he's at Andrew A. Davis, says you can only quote or GIF one TV show for a full football season, which you have to learn GIFs. That's the language on Twitter. You have to basically learn GIFs to kind of get your point across and get engagement. But what TV show are you choosing?
Well, you mentioned Simpsons, and Simpsons is just great because they covered so many topics for so long. Like there's something for everything. So in terms of this, like it's a great go-to because you're almost never going to be left hanging for like, oh, I need one, but because I picked this one show, I'm not going to have it. Simpsons pretty much has everything. I would offer up a second choice, which is more quality. Not that Simpsons is not quality. I believe Simpsons is of a very high quality. But in terms of less gifts, but maybe more bangers is Schitt's Creek.
Oh, sure.
Because they seem to have like a really good GIF library for a show that has much less, historical throw than something like The Simpsons.
And they clearly did it themselves because it's branded and they've got the like lettering that's different colors.
100%.
Yeah, so I find myself using them because they're attractive gifs, right?
Yes,
Like
they work.
You type in a phrase that you're kind of looking for, you get 5 or 6 options that come up, and you're like, I'm going to use this one because this one like is professionally done. So they did a really nice job to know like they were going to capture that market, as opposed to someone like you or me going in and like, I really want this line from this movie in a GIF.
Oh, I have so many of those, and believe me, I have thought about, that's one of those $1 million ideas. I need something that like can grab old movie quotes. We're talking like stuff you probably would most likely find on VHS, forget DVD, because it's probably the reissue was on DVD. And I'm like, I know there's that one line and I want it, but it was popular way before GIFs were popular. So nobody's done it. And I'm like, I just need a DVD or a VHS player. I can plug it in and be like that. And, basically do the reader, like basically a modified closed captioning with like a better font. Trust me, I've thought about it a lot, obviously.
I think my answer when I thought about this was actually a little. I think it technically counts. I was going to say SNL,
Sure.
because you get a lot of really fun different characters that come in.
Lot
You
of
get
variety.
hosts, and then of course they have so much of that improv type of. It's not necessarily improv. It's sketch comedy. A lot of it comes down to like one-liners and pulling some of that stuff off. So that's where I went initially. I mean, I think you could do The Office. I could do a whole season of The Office, certainly.
Easy.
I watched that show enough to be able to pull from that from memory. Simpsons is obviously a great answer. I know other people have, like, would answer like South Park or those animated shows that have been around for a long time. They're going to give you a lot of juice, but I don't know. I tend to use a lot of SNL gifts to begin with, so
There are
that's
quite a few that are very handy.
very useful. So that's where my mind went. But good questions. Really liked them, guys. That was a fun episode. Really appreciated you guys contributing there. Yeah, I think you could. I mean, animated shows are just so rich with content. But we're gonna, we got one more show. And then it's going to be the end of the year, and we're going to release EJ into the film room, and he's going to be focused on that stuff. So we got one more show. It's next Wednesday. Please join us for that if you can. If you can join us live, that's great. Get your questions in on Twitter. We'll cover what we can. Really appreciate another great year. We've got the New Year's coming up. We talked about
I
it
was
up
going to
top.
say, this is our last one in 23. So I want to take a minute and say to everybody that's followed along, that's interacted, that's sent questions, that's been in the comments, that's just supported us in any of our many endeavors. This is our last show of the year. It'll be 24 by the time we talk to you next time. Really appreciate it. This is a lot of fun for both of us. Although the Bears seasons have not been fun for largely the duration of this show, you all have made it fun. It's the reason we keep coming back and doing it. Obviously, this show has gone through a lot of changes, just like some of the shows we've talked about. It's been around a little while, and it keeps being interesting because of all of you, not necessarily because the Bears are great. We find interest in a lot of those stories, but it's because of the interest you have in it, the fact that you come back, the fact that you interact. So a deep, deep thanks from those of us on this side to you on that side. And we will see you in 24.
Well said. Can't do it any better. I'll just add, be safe, be smart on New Year's. New Year's is a great holiday.
Keep all your fingers.
But, be smart. And so we'll see you next week. Until then.